Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World, and with me of course are Farrukh, Pitafi and Raja Faisal. In today's show we're going to be taking a look at the current political situation in the country in light of course what is going on with different political parties and news of the upcoming general elections, the date for which still hasn't been announced, but there have been reports coming in from the caretaker setup and the ECP pointing towards the last week of January as the potential time frame where elections will be conducted. It is also important to note, of course, the kind of political developments that have been taking place, especially since the return of PML-N leader Mr. Nawaz Sharif in the country, and in what was perhaps the first engagement after a huge number of years, and the kind of legal reliefs that seem to be also coming in various cases against him. Pointing towards the Nawaz Sharif effect that various PML-N leaders have previously talked about before his return, and also of course in terms of the preparations that seem to be underway by the party regarding his movement across the country and preparing for the election campaign and mandate. And this is also important given the time frame that is being asked by the PML-N leaders that the ACP needs to call for elections immediately. At the same time, they're also calling for all the legal cases against Mr. Nawaz Sharif to be quashed. At the same time, we see that the PPP has been citing its own concerns regarding the current situation, them also coming previously from the co-chairman and party leader, Mr. Bilawal, who talked about how perhaps there isn't a level playing field and that every party needs to have access to contest the elections. And so whether or not that is the case and how exactly is this going to pan out with the previous alliance that existed with the PML-N is also important. At the same time, we also know that there are different leaders also pointing towards the fact that the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf's representation is something which seems to be also missing with its chairman behind bars, and what is going to be the scenario given the current situation in the upcoming polls as to how exactly that is going to be impacted. While at the same time we have seen that even though there hasn't been an official date announcement, there have been preparations underway in terms of the smooth conduct of the elections, particularly in the province of Punjab, where a number of arrangements with regards to security personnel have already been discussed with the ECP and the provincial minister as well. So what exactly is that pointing towards, and what sort of preparation takes place, and then what sort of mandate the different political parties are going to be having, and how well they're going to be able to be relevant and reach out to the public as it is today, and how it is viewing different institutions and party leaders, of course, remains to be seen and will be the point of discussion for our show today. Our next segment will also be taking a look at the international developments surrounding the Israel-Gaza conflict, which unfortunately since October 7th has also spiked, and a number of lives have been lost in what is being called genocide with the kind of attacks that we've seen by the Israeli forces against Palestinians in Gaza Strip, of course reportedly claiming that they are targeting Hamas. But we also of course know, with the international community protesting on the streets and many leaders now also calling for a ceasefire against the people of Gaza, who are going through the worst humanitarian crisis in the century, with the UN also calling the Gaza Strip a graveyard for children, with thousands of them dead since October 7th, is of course something which is tragic and alarming and needs our urgent attention. At the same time, after we have seen a break and a blockade of news coming in and information coming in from Gaza, there has been the video footage that you can see on your screens right now that has also come out again with Israeli tanks being seen on the streets targeting a family that was trying to escape. We've of course seen plenty of such content previously as well, and it's important that these are people who are actually suffering and whose lives are at stake, who have lost so many loved ones, including children, women, elderly, and many others, and they have nothing to support them except their own selves. And so what exactly is going to happen with regards to this conflict, and what is going to be the way forward with the international community calling for an end to this genocide? This is going to be our discussion at the end of the show. For this, of course, we've been joined by Farrukh and Faisal in the studios, and for our first segment regarding the political situation of the country, we've also been joined by Dr. Niaz, Murtaza, who's a political analyst, and Ms. Batool, Rajput, who's a journalist, and they've joined us online. Thank you very much for being a part of the debate. Let me start with you, Dr. Niaz. Given the current situation and the fact that we still don't have an actual date for the elections, the timeline, of course, seems to be pointing towards the end week of January, and the kind of preparations that we're seeing, especially in Punjab, in terms of security arrangements for the conduct of free and fair elections, points towards the fact that perhaps different political parties in the nation itself is gearing up for the elections. What do you think then, given the current circumstances, the possibility of the kind of criticism that other quarters seem to be leveling against the ECP and also the caretaker setup in some cases, of potential delay in polls, and that there still, because there is still uncertainty, there is a chance that these elections are not going to be conducted even in the last week of January?
Well, elections for a nation can play the same role as a vacation can do for an individual. If you have free, fair, peaceful elections, which are, competed by different parties with good ideas in a constructive manner, they can help re-energize a nation, recuperate, rediscover a focus, and, come back energized with a new sense of purpose, and then the winning party can take an agenda forward on the basis of which it won the election. But for all that, obviously, I had mentioned the prerequisite free, fair, peaceful, and constructively competed elections, and we don't seem to be moving towards those kind of an elections. And that's why you just see sort of listlessness. Nobody seems gearing up, having the kind of election campaign ready, where there can be discussion of ideas, policies, positions. Everybody is it's unsure whether, first of all, there are going to be elections, and even if there are elections held, whether they are going to be free and fair. So obviously, the PML-N has rediscovered some of its mojo because of the return of its leader. But then, other parties just don't seem, preparing. PML-N, now you can see it's holding meetings, making preparations, starting to, identify its candidates. But if you look at, PPP and especially PTI, which has kind of, been decimated because of, all the arrests of its top leaders, then, the forced disappearances, reappearances, forced to, change parties. So, I think the great purpose that an election can serve for a nation, we may not get much of that with the coming elections, and then you may have a government, a regime which doesn't really have a credible mandate, ideas, energy, and it would just be a continuation of the kind of politics that we've had for the last couple of years, full of conflict, full of vitriolic. So unfortunately, it doesn't look too good to me.
All right. Ms. Batool, the situation as it stands today, of course, is also taking a look on how the dynamics have been impacted since the return of the PML-N leader, Mr. Nawaz Sharif. At the same time, of course, while we hear the party preparing towards election campaigns and rallies across the country, there is, of course, also concerns that are being raised from other quarters, including the PPP, of a lack of a level playing field. And then, of course, we all know that the PTI chairman is still behind bars, and there is also concern being raised from the party of its own representation. And so this is going to be, of course, an important scenario before the elections actually take place. What exactly do you think then, in your opinion, is the situation for all of these parties currently, and how exactly will we be moving towards a free and fair conduct of the elections, given the fact that parties are already not satisfied with the situation?
Thank you so much for having me. I think the situation has two aspects after 9th May. After that, every party became very particular about the narrative it is going to have in elections. But at the same time, I believe that it had become an opportunity for the political parties to revamp their political narrative. and they could work on their manifestos and how could they perform, particularly after this very dragged and enforced kind of IMF program that we all saw. So I really believe that these few months they could have been an opportunity for the political parties, but unfortunately we see that the political parties, they don't seem to be understand the importance of this situation where country is and the people, they're expecting something from the parties regarding economy or the political institutionalization or the law or how Pakistan's foreign policy is going to be in coming years, particularly after we are seeing this Israel-Palestine conflict. So I think the political parties, they could not utilize the opportunity. I remember a few months back, one of the very prestigious newspaper in Pakistan, and they wrote these lines after no confidence motion, and it said exactly that it can be one of the opportunity that how political parties can create a political consensus or make a charter of economy or democracy or anything, but with complete consensus where we can see the spectrum of all political parties just working for the country, but we could not witness that. And at this very moment, if Nawaz Sharif comes here and he says that I want to work with anybody or everybody, but how? What is your plan? See, everybody was waiting for Nawaz Sharif's speech, and when we heard the speech, there was no plan exactly. The speech was more nostalgic, it was more emotional, and it was full of pain. It was very much relatable, but there was we could not see the politics inside the speech, that how it is going to work for the
Right,
country.
but Ms. Batool, is anyone actually looking for that as well? Was anybody actually expecting that that sort of aspect to be there? Did that nostalgia or emotion achieve the effect that it had to, and that is what the different followers in different parties actually go for, instead of who's asking the leaders for a plan?
I think your question is very valid, but I believe that nobody was looking up to an emotional speech. Frankly, I think, including us, we were looking up to a speech with a lot of preparation, with a lot of relativity, with a lot of comparisons, with a lot of reasons and rationale, with a lot of homework. But we could not see that because all that procession and jalsa and the gathering of people and the mic and the media and the social media became full of emotionality for Nawaz Sharif. We wish that we respect that. But as country, we do expect that whenever a political leader pops up or comes up or appears on media after ages or do a procession after ages, it is very important to to have something materialistic in it, uh, something to be built up in future. Um, and when Nawaz Sharif says that he's going to work with everybody and he's not going to be heads on with establishment, that's fine, that's understandable too. But when it comes to the concerns of Pakistan People's Party or absence of Chairman PTI, it becomes very clear that Nawaz Sharif has totally understood the potential survival that he could get within this situation, and it is all about himself. Now it is not about the other political parties or the level playing field of the other political parties. I think Nawaz Sharif is only working on his relationship with the establishment or how smoothly he's going to become prime minister, and that is very very evident.
Okay.
And when you asked me this question that were we actually expecting a non-emotional or unemotional speech, yes, we were expecting that because the representatives of PML-N, they were here on TV, and they said that when Nawaz Sharif will be here, he'll be here with a lot of plans. He'll be here with absolute trickle-down effect on economy agenda. And I'm sorry, but we could not see that. But the most important thing in this particular context is that we need elections. We absolutely need elections set up, and whatever party comes up, that party has to evolve. The system has to evolve. Things are moving in vicious circle. In 2018, Nawaz Sharif was out, and in 2023, Imran Khan is out. But what is new for the country. Nothing. Our purchasing power has not increased. We cannot afford private schools. We cannot our children if we cannot send our children outside for higher studies if they don't get the scholarships. Um, so I think we need an election, and only after the elections we will be able to see that which political parties has actually done work or actually done some homework for Pakistan.
Right,
But
absolutely, and that of course is important, and I hope that we are asking those questions. But Faisal, I want to also understand then, especially with what Ms. Batool just referred to in terms of what happened to Mr. Nawaz Sharif, or what happened to the PTI chairman, and how this is part of a cycle that has existed previously as well. I want to then understand then, is it just then these people, these leaders that are relevant in the discussion today, and what happens to them, and they are interchangeable as to what is going on in the country, and as a fundamental systemic progression, we really have not actually moved anywhere than we were years ago. Even if we don't look way back, just about till the last Prime Minister was in power, is it, or the last elections for that matter, is it the same situation, a different face?
Asana, if we, we be very frank and talk about that political parties, they have a habit that whenever they are in trouble, they just put it on the institutions. And if we talk about the, Mia Muhammad Nawaz Sharif, who obviously was former Prime Minister when Panama Papers, they came out, and Panama Papers, they were not brought out by institutions themselves. Of course, this was something there, and it was against the Sharif family, and that's how it got probed. And of course, JIT was obviously, looking into it, and they were the ones who probed it, and it had nothing to do with the institutions bringing on something, and all it happened was during their own government. Even Mia Muhammad Nawaz Sharif, when he got sentenced, that sentence came during their own government, and it had nothing to do with the next government, which was obviously of PTI. And if we talk about the institution's role in it, well, institution's role wasn't there. It was all that whatever was brought to themselves, it was their own past deeds which they just came in front of them. And if we talk about Imran Khan and PTI's leadership, I mean, the stance they had, they were bound to face whatever they are facing right now, and it is just the law taking its course. And if they have cases against them cases, of course, they have the grounds. That is why them cases are against them. And to be very fair, everyone needs to follow the rules, and everyone needs to face our justice system, and this is what is going on. And if we currently look at PML-N's stance, the only thing that lacks out there, as Batool has rightly pointed out, I mean, people had high expectations when Mia Muhammad Nawaz Sharif was coming back. Even I was glued to TV, just wanted to know what's new which is coming.
Okay.
And because I was thinking about, obviously, last 15 months, I mean, though he was in Britain, but still he was in touch with the top leadership, and everything was happening with his own consent and his leadership, even the Prime Minister.
But Faisal, if I may, since you were glued to the TV, it meant that there was a lot of expectation there. But I want to then understand then what exactly was what your expectation in terms of what possibly could he have said that he hasn't done in terms of his no revenge policy, with the way that he wants to go ahead with the institutions and have a positive approach, was perhaps possibly as far positive as he could have possibly get. There's no magic wand here. What else could have been?
Well, these were the mere words about no revenge policy.
It wasn't addressed.
No revenge policy. It was just the mere words. He
So you
is
think
someone.
going to follow
He
through
is
with that?
yeah. He is someone who had 40 years of politics with him. The very first thing, I mean, I would have someone with the 40 years of politics and who says that he gone through a lot so many times. I mean, I was expecting that he comes here and he asks for national reconciliation for all of the parties, and whatever the party, be it PTI or People's Party or whoever had faced anything against them in previously, I mean, he would have asked for, like, you know, all of the charges being dropped against them, and everyone should come out and give us a fair chance for going into elections. But now, of course, when one party leadership is inside, and of course PML-N has the full-fledged hand over the elections, of course they are campaigning for themselves, and I believe the elections, they can be delayed till April. I don't see elections coming till April, and of course that
1st of April.
No, that would be April Fool. I'm talking about mid of April somewhere, because that would give him the PML-N with 6 months of presence of Mia Mohammed Nawaz Sharif in Pakistan.
It's all about PML-N?
Because PML-N kept on saying that they hadn't had a fair play, they hadn't had open field for them, and now
I'll come back to this, because I want to talk about that in more detail as well. But before that, Farrukh, I also want to understand with what we've been talking about with different political parties, upcoming elections, whenever they are, and what the people's problems are, how relevant these parties are to the voters. It seems that these are two things running in parallel with what Pakistan is facing, what the people's problems are, and what is going on within the political circles of political parties. Do you think that there is a way to actually contest elections, like there is a way to actually give standardized tests maybe, or how to sort of play a certain game? Is that a different sort of skill than running a country or actually fixing problems?
Yeah, of course, there are different things, and this is a very smart question. And by the way, your earlier question to Batool was also very smart regarding whether we are expecting any programs or not. And I would like to actually address both, but before that, Sana, I wanted to actually start my deposition with one shout out. Yesterday, the Prime Minister went to Lums, and bits of pieces of that have been circulating on social media. But I want everybody to watch that master class, right? We already knew that the Prime Minister is glib, he's articulate, he's confident, he's smart, and he has a good understanding of history, not only ours but international. But what really impressed me, Sana, yesterday was the intellectual depth and articulation and confidence of the kids who were there. And I traveled back to the time when I was a student, and the train wreck we used to be, and I said that at the end of this rebooted Star Trek movie, there's a scene where Admiral is retiring and somebody is relieving him, Captain Kirk is relieving him, and he says, I relieve you, and he says, I'm relieved. So I felt that at least our younger generation has the kind of smarts that will take to reshape this country. So this shout out is for Lums and its kids. They were very articulate. I am really impressed. And their teachers should be complimented for that. Now, these two things regarding programs, Sana, simply the simple logic is whether you like it or not, there are only so many ways to win an election. Elections usually, of course, it is an exam, and that exam is conducted by the people of Pakistan. So you have so many examiners, hundreds of thousands of them, actually millions and millions of them, and those people you have to sway. Now, whether you think that PML-N is getting some special treatment from authorities or not, the fact is that when it comes to grassroots level, the common man seems to be actually, in many parts, smitten by another party. So if PML-N wants to actually woo them, win over them, what exactly can it do? One technique used to be that you hand out monies, or for that matter handouts. That is no longer relevant. We have seen in multiple elections that people actually kept on giving out motorbikes and cycles as well, but people would actually take them, travel on them and vote for the other party. So that also happens. What do you do then? you actually remind people that you are capable of governing as opposed to only getting elected. And how do you do that, Sana? You actually come up with a detailed plan, not only nostalgia, not only as if we are living in 2014, 15, 16, but the fact that now they have a plan for everything that is there. Then of course they have the media surrogates through whom they can perpetuate their value system, and then they can get the message out. Have we seen that happening so far, Sana? We haven't. The problem is that PML-N, at least in some part of its brain, it keeps on going that it cannot actually, it is 2014 and 15 and business as usual. It is not. Now you will have to earn every vote that you get. And to do that, what you do is you stop wasting time and get to business.
Excellent. All right, Dr. Niaz, when we take a look at the situation, especially given what is happening in the province in Punjab, it's important to understand also what the dynamic is. Of course, previously this used to be a stronghold of the PML-N, and then there was, of course, the impact that the PTI had, and there were talks about how the PPP also has certain clout in South Punjab, but now also it seems that with the way that we have seen the dynamics change, especially after the ouster of the former Prime Minister, it seems that the TLP is also gaining a lot of weight within the province, and there have been also certain surveys, according to Gallup, that says that this is emerging as perhaps the second most popular party. And I want to understand then, given how we have interacted previously as well on this issue, and how exactly the TLP has behaved, how is it that this has happened, that it has emerged at this position, and what will then the effect would be of this particular presence in Punjab on the upcoming elections?
Well, this is what happens when, there is interference in the political process and different parties are treated differently by the state. So, there is a crackdown on the PTI right now because of some of the violence that it committed at different points in time. But then, there is also the fact that the TLP itself has engaged in, massive violence several times, including, the Faizabad Dharna, and then later on in Lahore and other places. But, its leaders go scot-free, its workers are also released, and there are, the cases are quietly dropped, whereas, PTI is facing the brunt of, the fury of the state, and it's, being dismantled piece by piece, bits by bits. So if, a popular party is, made dysfunctional, then obviously all these kind of, extremist, populist parties get, a chance to, dominate the stage, especially if, people are angry with the PML-N because of its poor performance over the last 16 months. Then, if PTI is not there, what else is there? Then, people start looking at TLP because, it at least has grassroots presence compared to other parties that are now being formed, like, the Sestekam party. What does it stand for? What is its agenda? Does it have any grassroots presence? So obviously, when there is political interference by the state, then you do have these kind of distortions, and they are very damaging for the country. And, you have all these, stage managed speeches at universities like LUMS. Personally, I wasn't very impressed, with the videos that I've seen of the speech. For example, there was one question about, rigging of elections in, Karachi. Very valid question. And the answer by Mr. Kakar was that, this happens everywhere, and, Europe took 100, 200 years to, develop a democracy. This is no answer to defend rigging. So this is the question, whether we are going to have an election that is managed so badly, or
you'll have to watch the entire thing to understand what I'm appreciating. And there was command of history. You'll watch it.
Let me just finish, and then you'll have another chance. So, this is, you also asked about, what kind of, speech Mr. Nawaz Sharif could have given. Well, we need a new vision of governance. The things are so bad in this country. We are near default. we are near economic collapse, and it's because of the kind of governance model that all governments have followed, whether it was PTI, before that PML-N itself, PPP, and even the Musharraf government, and then of course you had the 1990s. It's been the same model. There's no emphasis on increasing investment, on increasing productivity. Whatever growth we generate, it's because of huge fiscal deficits, money supply increases, and current account deficits. And that kind of growth, what happens? Inflation starts increasing, your current, your foreign reserves fall, and then you have to go back to the IMF. They ask you to cut your fiscal deficit, and the growth model finishes. So I did not hear any, new ideas of how the country is going to be governed, and there was just this nostalgia about the 2013 to 2018, which had this superficial kind of growth driven by current account deficit, money supply growth, holding the rupee constant. That's not going to work now. We don't have the fiscal space for all that. So how are we going to increase investment, productivity? We need reform. And this is what he should have been talking about, that look, we accept the fact that our model, not just for the 16 months, but even for the last 5 years, was flawed. And now we have new ideas, we have new people who can implement those ideas, and that was completely absent. So there's no party which has a new vision for Pakistan, and how it can be taken out of the mess that it is in right now, and how we can start developing the way countries like India and Bangladesh have developed. So it's just back to the same business as usual. If we have another 3 to 5 years of a business as usual regime, then we will probably go into default or in economic collapse. So it's quite frightening.
Right. My last question to you, Dr. Niaz, is also with regards to the kind of population that exists at the moment and the way the society is, not just that it is extremely polarized in the kind of dynamics we've seen in the recent months and years now, but also in terms of the very large young population that we have, and expectantly is about 35% of the voter base that is going to take part in the upcoming elections, and that is of course perhaps a population that may not be looking at leaders such as the PML-N leader, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, as a leader to run the country, and perhaps may also be taking a look at the entire political situation with the involvement of various institutions within these dynamics quite differently than perhaps others in the country are. How will the political parties be of relevance to them, and how much significance will this election then hold?
Yes, this is, the issue. A lot of analysts, point out to 4 factors as hopeful signs. First of all, urbanization, the expansion of the middle class, the youth bulge, and then, social media proliferation. But, these things are not going to automatically lead to progress. They will only lead to progress if these kind of trends are used by groups which have a powerful agenda for governance, for revitalizing the economy and introducing a new type of governance. But that's not happening. All these 4 factors, urbanization, middle class, youth bulge, and social media, they're playing into the hands of populist parties, like or fundamentalist parties who whip up emotions, who give a false vision. Parties like TLP, and to some extent even the PTI is extremely populist form of governance. So on the one hand, you have the old, tired, patronage-driven politics of PPP and PML-N, and then you have as challenges, all these populist, extremist parties like TLP, and then the populist brand of MQN, PTI. So this is the unfortunate thing, that the new kind of forces, the new kind of visions that we need, they are not emerging. The left is still too small. People like Mifta Ismail went around with their reimagining Pakistan, but even there I did not hear very concrete ideas of a new economic or a governance vision. Right. So that is what happens when politics is so badly managed. You have this kind of reactive politics, out of steam politics, no fresh ideas, because everybody knows that they are not going to win or lose because of their ideas, but because what powerful forces decide. So this is what we have to get past, an end to, interference in politics, so that we can have free and fair elections. And parties have this idea that, they will be, judged on the basis of their governance record and their agenda for the future.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Niaz, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Faisal, very quickly, when we take a look at the current situation, there's also criticism that, and perhaps what you earlier pointed towards as well, so I want to explore that a bit further in terms of, let's talk about the legal situation against PML-N, for example, that once this situation is sort of favorable, is when the elections are going to be announced. And this is perhaps a view that different political party leaders have also shared, that is being centered around the PML-N, and that once we see that the legal cases against Mr. Nawaz Sharif is squashed, we will be getting a date. Do you believe this notion?
I do believe, and somehow it is being seen as well. Of course, the relief is being delivered to PML-N, especially the leader of the PML-N. Of course, it is being done, but at the same time, Sana, the problem is we are back to square one, and I do agree with Dr. Niaz that nobody has a way out of it. I mean, even if it is next Prime Minister, if it is going to be Mia Nawaz Sharif, I mean, till now we don't know what kind of manifesto he's coming out with, and like few of the parties, they come up with like 15 pointers for 2024 elections, 20 points, what they want to do, how they will change the situation. Because if we look at the current situation, of course, as you have earlier rightly pointed out, and Batool rightly pointed out, about people are facing problems. I mean, it is getting so hard for people to even pay for the fee of their kids and send to school. So we have to have a manifesto coming from Mia Nawaz Sharif, because he is being proposed as next Prime Minister.
And I want to explore this further. Why is that being done so, Farrukh? Given certain situations, it seems that everybody is sort of underlying accepted that this is who the next leader is going to be.
Right, Sana, and that is a beautiful question. To be honest, till the time anything happens, till the time elections take place, all of this, in any case, is propaganda, right? And I will never ask you to underestimate the power of propaganda or negative political advertising as well. Will you allow me to actually show my hand? I usually don't show my hand or my tricks, but today I'm just going to do it if I'm very happy today. Do you want to?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let me give you the power of negative political advertising. When Army Chief's selection was, that was a process that was going on. Right now there's this propaganda as well, that because Sharif's actually appointed the current Army Chief, that's why they are going to win. Then there used to be this talk that Mohsen Beg perhaps went to Mia Nawaz Sharif and said that this man is the best, so select him, and that's why he is going to be the caretaker Prime Minister. But let me go back before that. When Faisal was on my case, and you were repeatedly asking me who is going to be the Army Chief. At that time, I was thinking that General Bajwa has a serious chance of getting extension, and it is hurting us because right before he was selected, there was a negative campaign against him, some kind of takfir, and that's why in the war on terror he could not take a stand. So there should be a popular guy who has impeccable religious credentials, and then of course should be aware of the intelligence landscape. So there was one name that came to my mind. But if I were to say that this man is the best, and something would have happened, something different would have happened, I couldn't actually move around, right? So when you asked me, I told you, and I remember in those days PML-N was watching as well, I very humbly stated that all are great, but I tell you which one Imran Khan doesn't want, right? And I said that he has a negative list and there's only one one candidate who is on it, and that was the incumbent one.
Yeah.
So immediately next day, from their own propaganda campaigns, I started hearing that he is going to be the chosen one. So I at least a simple man like me, when I can play this, propaganda can, or negative political advertising can take you far.
Okay.
And I think that at this time, take everything as propaganda. There is a foreign policy angle, but never think that things are going to be as they are being stated on television.
Right.
Yeah. Sana, one-liner.
Much remains to be seen.
One-liner.
So we hardly have time for the next
Just
segment.
one line.
It is your favorite topic.
Yeah, it is.
The next one.
Yeah, just the one-liner regarding this. You know, it has always been said that all of the top generals in the list, of course, they're equally capable with the, you know, everything they have done for this nation for such a long time, for whole life they have done. So equally capable. But we remember that one of the you know, leaders, of course, of PTI, I'm saying, that he had said himself that whoever is the senior most should be obviously chief of the army staff, and I think it did happen. The senior most actually became the chief of the army
That's
staff.
not one line, Faisal. I'm not going to believe you next time. So we're going to be moving on to the next segment where we talk about the conflict between Israel and Gaza, and of course a very, very tragic situation that is going on, and of course the huge number of people that have been suffering for quite some time now, and of course thousands of children have reportedly lost their lives. Yes, and so because of that, of course, it is important for us to call out things as they are and make sure that there is a de-escalation and end to this genocide. But Farrukh, so far in terms of what we've seen and the kind of sort of blockade that exists in terms of information actually emerging out of Gaza as well, and despite whatever the international community or certain leaders are also pointing towards, there still hasn't been any action on ground, or perhaps enough push from the kind of leaders such as the US or the UK that we would have liked to see.
Yeah, right. Sana, I understand that Israel is among those countries for whom international system has a soft corner.
Yeah.
And that repeatedly shows, but there will have to come a time when they'll have to start calling out Israel, when they'll have to call a spade a spade. Yesterday the UN hearing was actually focused on that, but unfortunately international media did not show it, barring one channel, that is Al Jazeera. And it was very soulful kind of hearing. But if you want to understand what is happening in Gaza at this moment, you'll have to go into Netanyahu's mind. You'll have to understand how did he actually stay in power for this long, and what exactly he proposes to achieve now. He has actually stayed in power by putting together a coalition of extreme right in the name of paranoia. And we are talking about a country, Sana, which has Mossad, which is so well known. If you have read Ronan Bergman's book, Rise and Kill First, you will know that they have been killing people in Iran without any problem in public. So for us to believe that the country that actually exports Pegasus software to the world, for them they were caught snoozing when the actual enemy struck, is something that is fairy tale like, right?
Excellent point.
But then after that, Netanyahu has done something else. He was caught snoozing, but now how do you retaliate? You make your objectives really abstract, like ending Hamas. Now Hamas cannot be ended like this for three reasons. Number one, it is an idea. Number two, it is an international idea, so there will be remnants of it outside Gaza. How will you control that? Number three, Netanyahu has been a beneficiary of exactly that, right? Of Hamas's existence, because that is the boogeyman through which they actually keep on perpetuating their power. So now what he is doing is, initially we saw Israelis being killed, and there is going to be incredible pain, and then it is used to actually increase Islamophobia. But on the other side also, now what Netanyahu is doing, the videos that are being created will go viral on internet, and it will add to anti-Semitism. Now an Israeli president actually intentionally wanting Islam, anti-Semitism to increase in the world, it doesn't sound well. but the truth is it serves Netanyahu's purpose. Because if you are in Europe, if you are in America, you are in the first world. Why would you actually leave that place and come to a TPLSE, a country that is broken, unless there is hate around there? So Netanyahu right now has these coalition partners, and he is deliberately creating so much pain, which is going to actually come back to haunt us.
Right. Faisal, and I also want to give you a chance to talk about the video that you earlier shared as well with us, and we played it at the start of the program as well, in terms of course, the kind of violence that exists. And there's been numerous others coming in as well, but the way that we see the streets of Gaza with Israeli tanks, it's of course really tragic and condemnable. And perhaps one of the first information that we've gotten after a while, how will we be able to put forward this cause if we have such less information?
You know, information is out there. Of course, everyone can see all of these things which are taking place in there, especially if we talk about this video. I mean, it is a family that is in the car, it is going there, they see the tanks, they just come, they're trying to come back, and here comes a tank shell and it blows them away.
Yeah, they're not a threat.
And it is a war crime. Before this, they've been bombing hospitals, schools that are designated for people to get shelter, hospitals that are designated to, for people to get shelter in there with their own families. They're being bombed. Every place is being bombed.
Videos. It's so blatant. So
and
what more do we need to see?
Phosphorus bombs are being used, and there are obviously video evidences of that as well. And the brutalities which are being committed, they are in the shape of video everywhere. But still, there is nobody, not a sane country in the world, that is talking about the war crimes which are being committed by Israel. And of course, Israel, especially this Netanyahu, he should be obviously taken to Hague, and he should be tried on this, because he is the person who's actually creating chaos in this world, and this menace must be ended as soon as possible.
And he is answerable not only for the Palestinian blood, but Israelis also.
Israelis also.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we really hope that whatever it is that the people are raising their voice for and towards, are able to listen to what the world is saying and how this needs to stop. And we hope that the suffering ends sooner, and we understand what's going on, and those that are responsible need to see some consequence, and they get to do that. So that's all that we have from the debate. Thank you, Faisal and Farrukh, for joining us, and we'll be back with you tomorrow.